big show for you tonight. Great show for you. My name is King David MMA. I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and a pro MMA champion. I also coach at Extreme Couture. And tonight we have a big show for you today. Very controversial subject to start the show. A BMF title, especially after Charles Oliveira's most recent performance where he didn't act very BM or F, and he's got the MMA community exploding in rage about his performance, including people like Daniel Cormier and Ben Askren, who are both wrestlers, and they are both saying that that was not a BMF-worthy performance. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about should they strip Charles of the BMF belt. I'm going to give you my take on the situation on whether or not they should strip him. I'm going to give you a definite answer. I'm not going to play any wishy-washy. And we're going to get into 3 rule changes, 3 new rules that can make the BMF actually BMF. Bad mother. And I can't cuss until a little bit later in the stream. So for right now, we'll say bad mother fudgers, guys. You know what I'm saying? Furthermore, big news tonight. My dear friend, Felony Charles Bennett, has moved back in with me for the remainder of his fight camp. We're going to get into that. And tomorrow, he and I are going to hop on a collaboration stream. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you know when Felony and I go live tomorrow. We're going to talk all things BKFC. There's a big correction coming. He called me out. Felony called me out, man. I made a huge mistake, and I was wrong, guys. We're gonna correct the narrative tomorrow. Plus, we got other news for you. Logan Paul is back at it again. He's been calling out boxers and the beef between him and he's been calling out NFL players to box, and you know what I mean? Like, the dude boxes all the time. He trains boxing. He is a WWE star. And now he is specifically called out some NFL players. And his brother, Jake Paul, is promoting Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. They just signed Francis Ngannou. We're going to talk about why Jake Paul is the biggest threat to the UFC and the big problem that the UFC is having right now, because the rumors have it that Dana White is no longer the out-and-out final authority, that they brought somebody else in, which, if that's true, that might be the downfall of the UFC, because Dana White is the UFC. He built it to where it is, and we're going to get into that whole story, how Jake Paul is directly attacking him, and what it means for the sport of mixed martial arts. Before we do that, make sure you subscribe and tap the notifications if you're a real one, okay? That way, when I go live, you can hop on the chat with me. That way, we can have a dialogue instead of just a monologue. Instead of me ranting, we can have a conversation. Furthermore, Fight Circus, home of the freak show fights. You want to see the craziest fights you've ever seen in your life? Tune into Fight Circus, guys. Man, they have all kinds of crazy fights. They have man versus ladyboy. They have Lethway with headbutts. They have 2 versus 1. Where 2 people are fist fighting 1 person. They have 2 versus 2 in joint t-shirts. I've actually fought in a beer boxing joint t-shirt 2-on-2 match for Fight Circus here in Las Vegas at the Palms Casino, the main event. You know how we do. Speaking of main events, yes, that is a championship belt. But yeah, hit up Fight Circus for all your Fight Circus tees. And for all your freak show fight needs, Fight Circus. Let's go. Also, Studio Millions. If you know a gym owner, send them to StudioMillions.com. Studio Millions will get them right. We'll pack their gym. We'll make them a whole bunch of money. And your gym owner, friend, or coach will absolutely love you for it. Studio Millions. Now that we got all of that out of the way, let's get right into it while I take a sip of my Zevia energy drink that I just got out of the freezer. I turned it into a slushie, and 120 milligrams of caffeine, 0 calories. They do not pay me, but they can if they would like to. I will take the money because I actually drink their product. This is about my, let me count how many Zevias I've had today. This is my fifth Zevia, okay? So that is 500 milligrams. So that's 600 milligrams of caffeine plus another 160 from a different beverage. So we're at 760 on the day, guys. The night is young. It's like 11:30. I've still got 30 minutes. I can crack 1,000 milligrams. You know what I mean? So let's get right into it. We got a big show, big show. You know, I was watching my boys, Daniel Cormier and Ben Askren, talk about the BMF title. And they were not pleased with Charlie. They were impressed by his performance, but they weren't pleased in terms of, was it BMF enough, right? And this is two dudes who wrestled their whole lives, especially Ben Askren, who was known for wrestling, controlling, and dominating on the ground in his MMA career. He says that they should enact some rule changes to the BMF title. And that got me thinking, like, what rule changes would actually be awesome? So I don't believe that they're going to be able to enact actual rule changes, but as a community, let's just play around and come up with some rules that we can do together, right? So I was thinking, Ben Askren says that there should be a 3 takedown rule. You can't take somebody down more than 3 times over the course of the entire 5 rounds. Great rule. How would they ever enforce it? Well, I got to thinking, what if as a community, we all collectively decided, instead of it being a observation where we're watching fights, we're now participating, right? I mean, like, actually, we're all on the same page and we're all participating. And what I mean by that is that, what if we start actively as a community, agreeing to aggressively boo takedowns? And not just, and I've got a specific way of doing it, which we're going to get into right now. What if we aggressively agree to boo takedowns in the BMFs, right? So, first takedown, we boo. This is called the 3 boo rule, okay? 3 Bs, 3 boos, triple boo, boo cubed, okay? The boo cubed framework for booing BMF panicked wrestlers, or just wrestlers in general. Okay, so first takedown, we boo, guys. First takedown, we boo. Second takedown, we boo, right? Like serious booing, right? Like next level boo. Third takedown, we do not stop booing. Anytime that person does anything moving forward, just aggressively boo them, right? The only thing that we even applaud at all is strikes. Okay, and if we like on the third boo, boo them out of the building to the point where the social pressure gets so high that like, if they do 3 takedowns and it's just boo crazy, there needs to be a way where we could actually vote on if they get stripped of the title or not, or if they can even claim the BMF championship, right? So there has to be some form. They can win the fight, right? Like, they can get the win, but we can't let them walk out of there with the title or keep the title. Like, hey, you won the BMF fight, but you're not a BMF. With the invention of blockchain and crypto, UFC has partnered with Meta. They have AI. They've partnered with VeChain. They've partnered with Polymarket. There's got to be a way that when we start booing, if we can get the boos high enough to a decibel, right? There's got to be like something on the app that we can like vote collectively to like, hey, that guy can win the fight, but he's not the BMF. Second new rule that we can implement. Dana can implement this right now. The BMF title has to be non-linear, right? I mean like the way the Olympics do not progress in a linear fashion in terms of this Olympic champion goes into the next Olympics, and the only way to get the Olympic title is to beat that champion, right? That's not how the Olympics work. The Olympics work on a rule, like on a yearly system. So I'm not saying that there should be a BMF once a year. I'm saying maybe once every half a year. Like just the easy way to say it would be like summer BMF and winter BMF, or Q1 BMF. You know what I mean? But like we could make it the fire and ice BMF, the fire for summer, the ice for winter or something, right? Or rule 3, we alternate between men's BMF and women's BMF because the UFC has to have some form of championship every X amount of fights to fulfill their obligations to Paramount, which is why the BMF comes in handy for business reasons. Because if they can't get Strickland and Hamzat on the White House card because Strickland says stuff that may be offensive to the administration and Hamzat is friends with the dictator and they can't get him past security clearance, that fight can't happen then, right? But they can put a BMF title up. You get like if there's a opportunity where there's a card that could get them an extra obligation met by having a championship fight, but they can't have actual championship fights, they can bring in the BMF. Now, if they do this once a quarter, they could, in theory, alternate men's BMF, women's BMF, even women's BMF, men's BMF. Like, then they have 4 BMF titles in a year, title fights, and if the fight is not what the people are looking for, then we just go to something totally different. So like, for example, strip Charles Oliveira, which is what I think they should do. Strip his ass, right? They stripped Masvidal. Okay, so if you guys remember, the first BMF was Jorge Masvidal. They just gave him the belt and then they moved on. And then it was another, it was like, whoa, what happened to Masvidal? Okay, so they can clearly strip people. Strip Charles Oliveira of the BMF title, make it a non-lineal belt where you don't have to beat the champ to get the belt. It's a time-based thing or an interval-based thing or a, we can mix it up, right? We can have, in this second rule, we can switch around, right? It could be like the BMF has no rules. You get what I'm saying? Like, the BMF can happen when the BMF happens. The BMF can happen last minute. It doesn't have to be Charles won by takedowns and grappling, which is awesome. Good for him. That's very hard to do to Max Holloway. Felony and I are popping out to Hawaii. We're going to link with Max Holloway. And I will tell you guys, when I grapple Max Holloway, I'll come back and I will let you know what we actually witnessed, right? Did we witness like grappling greatness by controlling him, like taking him down and controlling him? Like, dude, I train at Extreme Couture. I train with the best people on the planet. I have a wide cross-section of people. I know good grappling. I'm black belt, pro MMA champion. So I'm going to come back and let you guys know how that goes. But let's say we strip Charles. And then it's like the next BMF title could be hypothetically, I'll just give you something crazy like, bring back Brock Lesnar versus Derek Lewis at the White House, the BMF, like something, right? Or Tai Tuivasa versus Derek Lewis, the heavyweight BMF, or you get what I'm saying? Like just some crazy thing. Or the women's BMF, Ronda versus Gina for the women's BMF in the UFC. That way they don't have to go to Netflix. That way Netflix doesn't start to accumulate power, right? Which in a capitalistic society, one would say competition is how we get the best product, because now the two products have to compete with each other for market share, right? But I'm saying if you're looking at it from the UFC's perspective, strip Charles, and now we have some belt that we can just put up. The BMF. Alex Pereira versus John Jones for the BMF at the White House. Like, can we, like, you get what I'm saying? The BMF has no rules, right? In terms of how the belt gets transferred, there's no rules. We could go from a men's BMF to a women's BMF and then back to a men's or go to women's again. We can go from two guys that are 145 pounds early in their career to they're fighting at 155. We can go from that to heavyweight. We can go from heavyweight to lightweight. We can go from, what's another one we could do? We could do Michael Chandler versus Nate Diaz. We could do Nate Diaz versus Kobe Covington. We can go straight from Charles Oliveira won the fight, but his performance based on the blockchain votes says he's not the BMF, strip him. Or just strip him. Or let him keep it if he had a great performance. But it's at the discretion of someone. Us as the fans, the UFC as the executives, the ever-changing title picture, the rankings that are ever moving and flowing, like who's hot right now in terms of popularity, who's trending, right? Like, so that's what I mean by the BMF shouldn't be champion, contender beats champion, they're the new champion, champion now defends. No. Title defenses are out, right? But we can have like Max Holloway is a 3-time BMF winner, but he doesn't defend the BMF every time, if that makes any sense. So Charles Oliveira, 1-time BMF winner. Now we're going to move on. Now Charles has to go win fights in impressive, crazy striking fashion to get another shot at a BMF title, or he can continue to do what he was doing and try and get back into the actual title picture, which is winners win, right? So now we have 2 lanes of competition. One is like who can put on the craziest and exciting fights, who can win while putting on the craziest, most exciting fights. And that's the BMF lane. So all the guys that want to go in that lane, you can be a 3-time BMFer, you can be a 2-time BMFer, a 5-time BMFer, right? But the metric is, are you putting on crazy, exciting fights while still winning? The other lane is like, who's the best actual fighter on the planet? And if we can make this distinction, right? And it's very simple, right? Send this to Dana. Let him know, like, hey, man, the distinction is this. One lane is who can win while being the most exciting, and they can win multiple BMFs, but it's not that they have to defeat the BMF to get the BMF belt. Every time it can be a new thing. There are no rules with how the belt changes hands. So Charles didn't perform up to the standards. He's stripped. We move straight into, I don't know, Kobe Covington versus Nate Diaz for the BMF, right? If Kobe starts shooting on Nate Diaz, he can't win the BMF. Even he wins the BMF belt, he can't stay the BMF champ. Boom. Now we move on, right? John Jones versus Alex Pereira, BMF heavyweight. They win. Okay, now we got another fight coming up. It's, Michael Chandler versus the little John Silva dude that barks, right? The fighting nerds guy, right? Like it just goes wherever it needs to go based on popularity ratings and who's been having crazy, exciting fights, like who's leaving it all out there. And that's the BMF lane. But if guys want to win at all costs, that's the who's the best in the world lane, right? So Charles Oliveira just displayed he wants to move out of the BMF lane into the win at all costs best on the planet lane. And now he's going to go for a real title. He's no longer the BMF, right? So that's the way the BMF can change hands. Women's BMF, all that, right? Like we can get really, really creative with it because it's not the best in the world belt. It's the, hey, what are the factors that we're looking for in this fight? Well, have you got 3 knockouts in a row? Okay, well now you're qualified to be in the BMF conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like now we're starting to set some unspoken rules, guys, and we can do this together as a community moving forward. Okay, so that's my take on the BMF. I'd love to know what you guys think. Drop a comment, hit the chat. We can get real weird with this. And I'm all for it, right? Like, let's make the BMF something completely different. And let's keep it around. Let's put it on the most crazy, exciting guys and see who can win the most BMF titles, even though they don't keep the title. They almost never keep the title, right? Like, you don't have 2 BMFs. You don't have 2 BMF fights back to back for the same guy. Unless it was crazy, like what Max Holloway did. When he pointed at the ground and knocked out Justin Gaethje. Okay, well, he's the BMF of BMFs that time. So he can fight for the BMF again. You get, like, he did enough. But Charles Oliveira didn't do enough. So we're moving on. That's my take on the BMF. Let me know what you guys think. Furthermore, Felony and I are collabing tomorrow. So make sure you have subscriptions and notifications on if you want to hop on that. Felony is staying with me for his BKFC fight, so we're going to finish the remainder of the camp here at Extreme Couture, and then we're flying out to Hawaii. We're flying back to Vegas. We're going to spend a couple days back out here. But we're going to hop on a live tomorrow because it's one of the best videos on this channel. It was 5 brutal backstage fight stories. It's like bone chilling, some of them. It does not have a lot of views right now. But the people that watched it were like, bro, you shook me to the core with the way you told that. Like, that story rattled me. I felt chills in my body. So these stories, like, go watch that. It's called 5 Brutal Backstage Fight Stories or something like that. It's on my channel, right? It's got a picture of me, Felony, smoking a cigar, and Vanderlei Silva. And 4 of the stories I nailed. One of the stories was the Felony versus Vanderlei Silva fight. And while I got the KO part right, I fucked the whole story up. We're gonna correct the wrongs. I'm doing a retraction tomorrow. We're gonna have Felony tell it, and it's gonna be the end-all and be-all final authority story on what really went down between Felony Charles Bennett and Vanderlei Silva backstage at Pride when Felony knocked out 200-something pound, steroided up Vanderlei Silva cold on that locker room floor. We're going to get into that story tomorrow. So make sure you're on the live. We're going to talk BKFC. We're going to talk his last fight. We're going to talk, he's got hot takes on what should happen with the BMF. Dude, listen, Felony and I have differing opinions on several subjects. But here's one thing that we have in common, hot takes, okay? So Felony's gonna let you know how it is tomorrow. We're gonna hop on a live, so make sure you got subscriptions and notifications on. His YouTube is Felony Charles Bennett 352, okay? Subscribe to both, notify both. This is called N squared, notifications times 2, guys. You wanna be on this live tomorrow. You can hit the chat, you can interact with us. You know what I mean? We're men of the people, okay? I might be caffeinated. I will be caffeinated. Furthermore, I keep seeing people posting about Logan Paul calling out NFL players, but to my understanding, that got squashed by the WWE. We're gonna get into that right now. Let me finish this Zevia slushy. I think it's melted now though. So, delicious. And this is the cola flavor. That's not the soda. That's the energy drink. The soda has about 34 milligrams of caffeine. The energy drink has 120. So Logan Paul has been barking at NFL players. And for some reason, I see people like talking about this, but to my understanding, the WWE has shut all this down, and Logan Paul has even commented that it's shut down. But I've heard NFL players are barking back. Right? And so now Logan's in a situation where he was saying he wants to box any NFL player who could beat him. He's going to give him $1 million or something to that effect. And, you know, NFL guys are big, strong, competitive athletes. They're taking him up on it. WWE comes in and goes, hey, man, you signed to us. You perform for us. You're not going to boxing. So Logan Paul is dealing with having authority figures reign over him right now. And some people are even saying that he did this knowing he wouldn't actually need to box, right? So it's a publicity stunt to get the NFL to talk about him, to promote him, his Pokemon, his podcast, his WWE career. WWE puts the kibosh on all of it, and now WWE is in the conversation. He's generated some publicity for WWE. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that's what the rumors are saying. So, man, I want to see Logan Paul box some NFL players. You know, give an NFL player 6 months, a year to train. Man, that's dude's 300 pounds running a 4.40. You know what I mean? Like 36-inch vertical. Okay, box that guy, bro. He's 6'4", dog. See how you do. See how that works out. Right? So that will be interesting. I hope he can get around the WWE contract and go box. Furthermore, speaking of the Paul bros, Jake Paul is currently the biggest threat to the UFC in the world. And Jake Paul has been going hard at Dana for quite some time. And now this is the biggest move that Jake Paul has made against Dana White specifically and the UFC in general. And that's signing Gina, Ronda, and Francis. Now, Jake is talking to Conor on Twitter. He's talking, and him and his business partner, Nikisa, who is the CEO of Jake Paul's MVP, they're saying they want Jake to fight Conor in boxing and MMA. They want Conor to get out of his contract and come fight on Netflix. They want to pay him a fuck ton of money, and they want to give him the biggest platform possible, which is Netflix, which is the biggest subscription service on the planet. Furthermore, Jake Paul is talking about he wants to fight the world champion boxer Usyk in an MMA match, and Jake Paul is slamming the UFC for their pay structure. Gina and Ronda are getting paid, guys, right? Like, that's the issue. You know what I mean? They're paying these people. Francis is getting paid. They're talking to John Jones publicly, going like, hey, John, if you can get out of your contract, we'd love to have you at Netflix on MVP. We'll pay you what you're worth. Dude, you know how difficult that's making things to get these fights to happen in the UFC, right? When John is going, well, they'll pay me a bunch of money. And then, you know, Dana and Paramount are going, dude, you're in contract, bro. You've agreed to this amount. The other thing that complicates it is, for instance, Conor McGregor's a huge pay-per-view star and there's no more pay-per-view. So I'm not a legal expert, but some of you might be. Does that negate his contract, right? Is he allowed out of the contract because there's no longer a pay-per-view model in which he was getting pay-per-view points, right? These are the questions that are being asked. So when you see the White House card, everybody's upset about the White House card, right? These are the complications that are happening. Security clearances. You can't have Hamzat at the White House. You can't have him and his people there. You just can't. Islam Makhachev, you can't have there. He's probably got some connections, some overseas, whatever, right? Like, I heard that's the rumor, and now he has a hurt ankle or something, but I heard this is a complete rumor. I haven't talked to Islam about it. I haven't talked to Ali Abdelaziz about it. But I heard they were having problems getting Islam's security cleared. And I don't even believe that to be true. I would imagine he could get his security cleared because I've seen Ali with President Trump before. So I would imagine that if Ali, his manager, is allowed to be around President Trump, Islam, who's essentially just trained martial arts his entire life, unless there's something about him I don't know, but that's what the people are saying, is that there's security problems. They can't get some of these fights made. And then the negotiation problem is Jake Paul and his people are paying, some people would say overpaying, the Rondas and the Ginas and the Francises of the world. But it's throwing a wrench in the UFC's business plans. And then to make matters even more complicated, word on the street is that when Paramount paid all this money, they wanted to bring in some business dude, right, to bean count and start overseeing Dana's fucking swag, man. And Dana's the fucking man, dude. You guys realize that during the lockdown, Dana literally went first? I have a whole rant about this on my Instagram. This is like, some people would say, and this is not hyperbole, this isn't hype, he changed the course of world history by going first. By going first, he showed other sports organizations that they could go. And when they started going, and college football's going, and there's people in the stands, and then people at home are watching like, dude, why are there, 15, 20, 30,000 people watching college football outdoors? Like, wait, maybe the news isn't exactly as accurately as informed as they portray themselves to be. Maybe they got inaccurate information. Dana went first, things started opening up, and the lockdown led down. So, listen, man, things get complex when billions of dollars get in there. Now they're saying that Dana is not able to make the fights as like a fight fan that there's like the bean counters coming in and going like, we have shareholders. Now, this gets complicated because in a business structure, you're obligated to your shareholders, right? Like you have a legal responsibility to make every effort to make your shareholders money. One way of doing that is cutting costs. So there might be shit going on behind the scenes of like, hey man, this is the price we can pay for this card. We need an average of this price per card. And we need this much profit margin. And we need this and we need that and da-da-da-da-da. And then you got to operate within those parameters to secure the $7 billion bag. And on, let's say, the White House card, you got to deal with foreign fighters and security clearances and American fighters who have hot takes on the president's involvement overseas and political opinions that differ from the administration that might say things. So then you also have Jake Paul chirping at your signed fighters that he will pay them more if they can get out of their contract. So like, that's how complex the fight business is. So as much as I would love to see an all-American card, I'm talking top to bottom, total American domination. And I'm still on the White House card, guys. Listen, maybe I'm naive. I'm still holding out hope that they'll make a deal with John Jones. You know what I mean? That's what I'm hoping for. I'm still holding out hope that they're going to get Colby Covington on the card because he was playing that character for so many years, going all in, risking his life in Brazil, death threats, right? Like having an entire country hate him. He was committed. Now, I'd advise him to have a different bit of, like a little more authenticity in the character personally, but I appreciate his attempts and staying in character for years. He stayed in character for years. Can we get him on the card, man? Throw the guy a bone. I want to see Colby Covington versus Nate Diaz on the White House card. Final announcement. Maybe Cyril Gane has a shoulder injury and maybe John Jones hops on and like now the world is right again. John Jones takes down Alex Pereira. Alex tries to wrestle up. John guillotines him. John rides off from the sunset, a rich man. You know, I want that fight for the BMF. But listen, guys, I'm like too hopeful around here. Okay? I'm too hopeful. I still believe. You know what I mean? Anyways, that's what's going on. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications because Felony and I are going live. Yes, the legend, the MMA legend himself, Felony Charles Bennett, just got 16 million views on his last knockout on one reel alone. He's got 100 million views on that knockout across platforms. He came out in the blonde wig and the racist Burger King hat, dressed as the racist Burger King airplane dude to the last BKFC fight. That went viral. The knockout went viral. He beat up Wanderlei Silva. You've seen all his highlights. Tomorrow we're going live together. So make sure you have notifications on. I love you guys. I will see you in the next stream tomorrow with Felony Charles Bennett. Peace.